And I remember thinking like, well, first of all, the Acorn School atmosphere was just the perfect place for her because there was so much understanding and flexibility, and like there was never like you need to sit for a circle. It was like, if she wants to go climb a tree, let her climb the tree. So she would just like listen, and when she was done, she would like get up. I just remember thinking like, I just want her to be able to do this forever,
Today, we are going to be interviewing John and Katelyn. They are long-standing Acorn School families.
Yes, very long-standing, like original.
From the beginning.
From the beginning, first month we started.
And they actually work with us now.
Yes.
But that's not so much what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk more about their experience as parents and becoming homeschoolers and joining us at Acorn School.
Yep.
So should we get into it?
Let's do it.
Okay, well, welcome. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you for having us.
To start, let's talk a little bit about you guys and your background and, setting the scene for what got you to where you are today. So could you tell us a little bit about your educational journeys and like where you started and kind of to lead into what brought you to homeschooling with your kids?
Do you want to go first?
You go first.
Okay. I was like stereotypical overachiever, straight A student all through school. Yes.
So what was
you
your
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally over here, yeah.
Yeah. So
I was too, guys, just saying. It might not seem like it.
we believe you.
We didn't think you weren't.
Straight A student over here too. Until I did bad things. But that's
like that's another podcast. No, so I loved learning. Like his mom was actually my 6th grade teacher. So like a funny
But we didn't
tidbit.
meet until my senior year of high school.
But I have like visceral memories in my 6th grade class. She was a really good teacher. And like one of those teachers who had a lot of just like fun projects and made it as fun as you can. And so I got like super into learning all about Egypt. And I did this cool like diorama thing. And I was like reading books about Egypt on the weekends. And like I was like so into Egypt. And that just faded the more that the years went on because it was like fun. And then all of a sudden I feel like in middle school, everything became like in high school, it's going to be harder. So you got to get serious. And so I would get yelled at in class for reading books and like put your books away and pay attention. And I was always that kid that like finished assignments early. So then I'd start talking and then I'd get in trouble for talking. And it's like I was a good student, but like I was not getting enough. It was just like busy work to me. So when I was basically just pushing all the time for good grades, and it all became about the grades because it was like high school. And then when I got to high school, that just intensified because then it's like college, right? And I was like heavily involved in sports. I was the team captain for my volleyball team. So I would like go to school, do all my AP classes, come home, do homework from the time I got home until 5 p.m., go to volleyball practice, get home at like 8 usually, eat dinner. Like, I'm just doing this so I can get good grades and like go to college and like all of these things. And I feel like most people from the outside, like even my mom was just like, oh, Katelyn, she just stresses too much sometimes, but like she's all right. But I was like so anxious about everything, like really just so much pressure on me that it became super unenjoyable. I hated school. Like I was like just struggling mentally with a lot of it. And I was telling John this the other day too, like it's interesting because looking back, I loved volleyball. Like it was my passion. And I initially was like, I want to play volleyball like collegiately. Like I wanted to like pursue that. But by the time senior year came around, I was so burnt out. I like didn't even try. Like I was like, I'm not even going to look into it. I'm not even going to try. And even though I saw like friends of mine doing that, I was like, no, like I don't have it in me. I was just like literally like, no, I can't do it. So I went to college. I did the whole college thing, graduated at the top of my class. But by the time I finished college, I literally was at the place of just like, education is a scam. College is stupid. I didn't need to do any of this. Like, I just like, what was the point? Yeah. Like,
true.
It was all just busy work. I finished business school.
The WP Carter School of Business
at
through
ASU. 4.0 GPA. And then started my own business, like all in college. So at the same time. And people would be like, oh, but that's so great. You got a business degree. So you're using it in your business. And I was like, no, I'm not. I don't use a single thing I learned at business school in my business. Like maybe if you want to talk about like the practicality of learning how to meet deadlines.
Yep.
That's it. Like, that's literally it. And I could have learned that and not paid thousands of dollars for a college education. So everything that I learned in business, I had to learn myself and just like research one as an adult. And so it's just interesting to me because when we got pregnant with Emerson, my first, immediately I was just like, I don't want to do it the way I did it. Like, I didn't know, I wasn't at homeschooling yet because I didn't know homeschooling could look like this. Like, I just was like, I have to do something different. So whether that's, I don't know, a charter school or like we're going to figure out some kind of like special different school. But I was just like, I cannot put my kids through the pressure and just like, it was sad to me that I went from being a kid who loved to learn and would like read books about things and just like research and like do all of that for fun to like spending hours just writing essays and being stressed about it. And like, I would cry if I got a bad grade on something. And it wasn't like, oh, she's just being over emotional. It would literally like devastate me to get bad grades on things because it felt like it was so intertwined with like
identity.
My identity of success like was all about you have to get these good grades and like finish, at the top or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you're putting yourself through the ringer to try to get the good grades. But putting yourself in the ringer makes you tired and burnt out, which then makes you unable to do the assignments well because you're so exhausted. And then you get a bad grade and then you feel terrible about yourself.
Yeah.
Like, it's a horrible collection of things that you just are pushing on people that are...
I also am, like, we talk about this too, where it's like, school is really designed for a certain type of learner. And I had the ability to like study not very much and show up and get an A on a test. Like, I was always that way where like I was just good at regular school.
Test taking.
But I wasn't retaining the information. Like, I'd be like, I don't know. I got an A on the chemistry test. Cool. Like, I don't know chemistry.
Geomorphology at
right.
ASU.
But it's like I didn't enjoy it. I didn't feel like I was like more educated for having those grades. It was just like I'm really good at like figuring out the right answer on the test. I'm really good at learning how to write the paper so that I get the good grades that this teacher is wanting from me. You know what I mean? But I feel like early on, I would research things and like actually learn them and like soak them in. And like even now, like as adults, we have gone to museums and I'm like, oh, King Tut, did you know? And I'm like telling him because it's in my brain from 6th grade, this like passion that I had. But like I can't tell you anything from college. I don't remember anything from college. It's just out, So yeah, for us, I think that experience just was like, I didn't want to replicate that with my own children. Because I had really like involved parents, like I was involved with sports, I had friends, I wasn't just like this lonely child who was struggling, but I still had like really bad anxiety and everything. Like I did everything right. And so it didn't make sense to me that the public school system or just like the traditional school system, the way that we educate children in America, like that's the path we're putting them on. And it's like, well, everybody does it. Like everybody just does it. So we just accept that. Like, no, I just didn't want to do that. So.
And I think most people are stressed and anxious leaving college, and then they go into a corporate job or something else that just they keep repeating those same cycles, and they just feel like that's the norm of life, and that's
just
how it is until you retire, and people are miserable and they're sick and their mental health is bad. And I do think that starts, like you're saying, very early on in education. I agree with you.
Yeah. Very early on. And it's crazy to me because it's like that push for college, like literally started in middle school.
I remember it in 5th grade.
Yeah.
I remember in 5th grade, it's like, you're going to be in middle school now.
Yeah.
You better prepare. You better do good in middle school, because if you don't do good in middle school, you won't do good in high school. If you don't do good in high school, you're not going to go to college. If you don't go to college, you're going to die. Like that's how it felt.
You'll never have a job.
You were just going to be the biggest loser in the world.
Yeah. Like,
if you don't do this trajectory. And then it feels like a scam. I did the same thing. I graduated high school. I didn't go to college. I graduated high school and was like, that was a scam.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Waste of time.
It was such a waste of time. I was so stressed. I was so miserable. For what? So you got a certificate that said I could go get a job that nobody ever looked at?
I know.
And then any real business owner is looking at people who graduate college and they're like, I need you to understand that you don't know it all, and we need to teach you the things that you need to know.
Oh, yeah.
You're put on this high horse once you're in college.
Everywhere. Like, we'll talk about this in our next podcast with me, literally went to college to be a teacher, became a teacher. Literally nothing helped me. Nothing helped me from college to prepare me for the classroom in a public school. Like it was like thrown to the wolves, and I learned everything by having to figure it out myself.
I think that's
real world
and then I
job,
had
though.
so many trainings as if I didn't learn anything in college because I didn't. You know what I mean? Like it just nothing helped me.
I think
It was
that's
just crazy.
any job. That's been every job I've had since I graduated high school is you go and you figure it out by doing it
Yeah.
and you learn
Yeah.
from the people that do it already and they teach you what to do. And then if you practice, you get really good at it.
Yeah.
That's it. There's
I will
no,
say
like,
the thing that I
course.
learned
Yeah.
the most in college was how to cite where I got my information.
Oh my God.
We
Okay,
talked
but
about
this
this
is what we
yesterday.
just.
Literally
I
with-
was
literally
just talking
what we
about this
talked
because I was
cite
like,
my sources
I had
and
you
not
know,
plagiarize.
Literally,
That's it.
yes, no. This is
Because
the
there's a
whole
certain way to
point.
publish academic
It's not even about what
papers.
you learned. It's about the formatting of
Yeah.
the thing that you supposedly learned. Like,
Yeah.
It's good
I would
training
have
if you're going to be a
teachers every now
professional
and then.
academic.
yeah. I would have teachers where they would like reignite the like excitement for learning.
Because
Like I
they
had
had
an
a
English
passion.
teacher in high school who like loved just literature. And so I would get these really cool assignments and I'd be excited about them and I would like write this paper and I'd be so excited. And if it could end there with just turning it in, yay, education. No,
Yeah.
it never ended there. Then it would be like, oh, I need to make sure I format this properly. And it's some crazy, whatever, AP, blah, blah, blah. I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you now because I don't remember it. But it's like, you do the whole thing. You stay up extra late after volleyball practice to make sure you format the paper right. You turn it in and then you get it back. And it's like all these red marks for dumb things that have nothing to do with the actual content of the paper. And that's what
The
drove
color
me.
Red.
Yes. And it would just be like
Teacher's
so
favorite color.
disheartening. It would be so disheartening. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, of course there's a time and place for like we want to learn proper grammar and whatever, but just the things I would see, and I was very meticulous and I would still get it back. But some of my friends like who weren't as crazy anal about it as me, it would be like, oh, the spacing and the line margin is
Yeah.
too big. So minus 10 points. Like,
Yeah.
what?
But isn't
That's
that
not even-
destroying? Like
yeah.
mentally, like you had fun learning about that. And then literally it's mind-blowing to me just the color red on all over on your
Mhm.
hard work that you enjoyed is just devastating. I
It's not
feel
even
like, to kids.
necessarily
It's so
constructive
sad.
feedback.
No.
There's different when you
It's
get
just like 10
constructive
points
feedback.
this, 10 points that.
It's arbitrary.
Oh, wrong font.
Yeah.
Sorry. 10 points. Like, you know,
No,
like it's
literally
so sad.
wrong font.
I
So
know. I'm
sad.
laughing
It's
'cause
so
I'm
bad.
literally thinking about Acorn School
Ugh.
and I'm literally thinking about how the exact opposite
Yeah.
it is, you know,
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
point of like the owls class where they're reading these books and
Yeah.
literature. They don't have to sign like there's no pressure. And if
Yeah.
you don't like it, you could do something else. It's
Yeah.
not it's just so different. Than
Yeah, because I
what
can't
you
even
guys are.
imagine, like, with our kids, me walking around, oh, you're not sitting crisscross? Minus
10
10 points.
points.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You wove that twig in a clockwise way? Oh, sorry. 10 points. No. We don't do
You
it
sound
that
like
way.
10 points for Griffin.
Yeah, I know it does.
That's
Actually, I was
cute.
trying to model
McGonagall.
after that. Yeah, but
That would
no.
be fun though,
That would be.
if we were back
Yeah, that would be.
in the real way.
But yeah,
Yes.
no, Caitlin, that's a
Hummingbird
very
House
good
gets
point.
10
It's a very
Yes.
good point.
Yeah.
about-
And then you just get bummed. And yeah. So.
Mhm.
What about you? What was your experience?
My experience was different than Caitlin's because
You know
well,
what I'm saying?
yeah,
That's good,
well,
though.
okay. So my mom had me when she was really young. She was like 19. And so when I was a kid, she went back to college and got her teaching degree at NAU. And so education and going to college in particular was like the thing that saved my mom because we have a whole history of addiction in my family and just a bunch of stuff. So college for my family was like the thing that saves your life, like literally. So it was always like put on a pedestal. And so college was always on the radar for me also, but not in the same pressure way as it was with Caitlin with the grades and everything. It's just like you just have to make sure that you graduate and you go to college. And my grandpa, I was a musician growing up and I played drums in like the jazz band in our church and everything. And it was always like, you're going to go to school and the best thing to do is to get a business degree because that's going to set you up for this and it's whatever. And I didn't really ever actually pay attention or like put a lot of like thoughtfulness into it. It was just like, yeah, of course I'm going to go to college or whatever. But the difference between Caitlin and I is I just had a kind of lackadaisical approach to high school. I would say like, for instance, like my entire senior year, I never took a backpack. I carried a paper bag or a plastic bag to make a point that I wasn't going to take a backpack because I didn't need it. So, but I wasn't like slacking. I tried. We just had this conversation last night because I was like, I'm pretty sure I got all A's in high school.
He's delusional.
I'm pretty sure I got all A's in high
I'm
school.
thinking about myself where I like organized my backpack and I picked my backpack a certain way. I had
We are
all
the
of my
same.
pens.
Emilirose, we
all
are the
of
same.
My colored pens.
Back
and my
to school
folders.
shopping was like
The prize of the
yeah.
year. Like literally the only reason why I wanted to go to school was to show off all
Yeah.
my stuff I got
Yeah.
that I picked out and curated.
Well, so I was thinking about this the other day because I think that the reason that I approached high school the way that I approached it in that way, I think it was to assert some sort of control over my life because I was the kid in elementary school who couldn't sit still. And so I had to go sit in the corner and be by myself away from all the other kids because he was like crazy or he just couldn't focus. And I was diagnosed with OCD as a kid. And so I had those type of tendencies of like OCD or ADHD, like hyperactivity and all that stuff, to which I would look at little John and say, does he have ADHD and something wrong with him, or is he just a little boy? And so I think going into high school, it was a way to assert some sort of control and like, okay, well then I just won't care and I'll just show up in these ways or whatever. And I never like stressed about going home and doing homework and all of that. But I always did fine in school. Like it was never at risk. I never was told that I wasn't going to graduate high school or had any of those issues. And I think that the saving grace for me is because I was so involved in the jazz band and I had a lot of close connections with like friends in bands that I was in outside of school also. So I had like a mini community of friends. I specifically remember like graduating high school the day at graduation, being at the high school graduation and talking to my mom and being like, is it weird that like I just don't care about this whatsoever? And because that wasn't my community, it wasn't my people. And I didn't care about school, which is weird for me now because fast forward to Katelyn and I get married and I'm 21 and I love to learn. It was like surprising to me that I love to learn, that I love science, that I love to read books, that I love to learn about things that I'm interested in. I had no realization personally that was like the type of person that I was until after getting out of high school, after dropping out of college. Yeah.
To find it yourself.
To do what you wanted to do. And time. I think that's one of the biggest things is time that's stripped from us from school and activities and things that we did growing up, as there was no time to just like, what do I like to do? What do I like to look at? What do I like to read?
Yeah, well, I think we
That's exactly,
we talked about this in one of our other podcasts, and I thought it was a really good point. I feel like in like traditional like school settings, a lot of things are just like provided. But not in like a healthy way. It's like you do it this way and you're doing this now and you're doing this next. And like you don't really get to sit there and think about what you want to do or what you're interested in because you're constantly being fed.
Nobody
so
knows
how do you,
what they want to do.
Yes.
And then they go to college and they
you're
waste
like,
all this money.
Oh, I don't know. And then you're like stuck with it for the rest of your life.
And then 5 years after college is when people realize what they really want to do because they were
100%.
able to like.
It's funny you say that too, because when I started college, I did start college. I started on a drum scholarship to go to school, and I failed miserably in the college format because what you're saying, like I feel like I always did great in high school, fine enough, but then when I was actually in an adult environment where it was like completely up to me to like be disciplined and to do the homework and to do the reading and to show up to the class, I got Fs, and that's why I dropped out of college. I just stopped going because I had this freaking math class that I took twice that I couldn't pass because I approached it in the exact same way that I approached high school too. And to your point, Emilirose, the high school like weird structured format is like so coddling and so hand-holding that they don't even let you fail on your own. You don't even get to like have your own experience of failing and realizing,
especially if you're an athlete,
to make a mistake. I think you guys talked about it in the last podcast of like I didn't have any like opportunity to actually make any mistakes because it was like so hand-holdy and in that environment. Because you have to pass tests and it makes the teachers look bad if you don't actually pass the standardized testing because then they didn't do their job
to that
correctly.
Point, though,
so they're going to make sure you pass the freaking test.
As from a teacher's perspective, like gives me like anxiety because I just would have admin breathing down my neck.
Because that's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter about the actual human beings.
Well, that's how you get funding for school.
About the money.
Yeah, and we were always at, what is it, Title I?
Exactly.
We were always at the super low income schools too, so that was a problem.
It's about their money.
Yeah. Well, and what you said about like you were having a hard time like sitting during like class and stuff, and maybe you were just being a little boy, I want to touch on that. Okay, then I'm going to preface this. This is Emilyrose's opinion. This is not fact. This is based off of my experiences as a teacher. But like kids have to sit there and not move and hold still and try to absorb me speaking at them for 6 hours, okay? Well, on days when we had rainy day schedule and we didn't have recess and they couldn't go play, my entire class exhibited ADHD behaviors. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like it's so hard to sit there.
Yeah.
I have a hard time as an adult sitting for more than an
100%.
hour. I want to get up and like do things. And so not to take away the children who do have that, or if you have that, but it's just like, I feel like it's really hard for kids to sit there all day. I feel like I'd be jittery.
Yeah, of course.
No, when I see the kids at Acorn School, especially the boys, where it's like, you'll see the little girls and they play together too, but like a lot of times it's funny because you'll see the girls and they're like playing house or they're like making soup, and then you like turn and there's just a group of boys like jumping over wood and like throwing rocks and like jumping over hay bales now, and it's like these boys just need to move.
I love little boys.
I can't imagine telling them sit still for 6 hours.
So we have two girls. For people who are watching or listening to this, we have two girls, but her stepsister has a son. Okay, so I have a nephew. Doesn't matter.
Family tree.
Rewind. So I'm used to Emerson and Luella at home and playing, and they have these like those little foam swords at home, and so we'll do like our sword fights and we'll play pirates, and I thought it would get crazy because I'd put on like the Pirates of the Caribbean song and like I'll jump on the couch and like like we'll fight. And so we are at like a Christmas dinner or something like that last year, and my nephew's there, and we bought him one of those swords as a gift, and so he gets it, and I'm like, Logan, let's sword fight, and I'm like, ooh, come here, and he like jumps on me and is like, ah! And he's like hitting me,
literally
like,
totally
attacked
different.
him. And John's like,
he
whoa.
loved it, and then he's chasing me the whole night, jumping on me like, stop, like
And
getting
his
me.
parents are like, thanks, John.
Yeah, I was not expecting that at all. He's awesome. So
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree.
Yeah. Boys are much different. And I have 3 nephews, so
Charlie can make it through the circle. The 15 minutes, 20 minutes that they're in the circle, because he likes it. He likes the story. He likes the song. So he can sit there, but he is done when it's over.
Emmy didn't
Jumps
used to be able to make it through circle. When we first started coming, she was just about to turn 4. And I remember thinking, like, well, first of all, the Acorn School atmosphere was just the perfect place for her because there was so much understanding and flexibility, and like there was never like you need to sit for circle. It was like, if she wants to go climb a tree, let her climb the tree. So she would just like listen, and when she was done, she would like get up, and like her and Ava, her other little friend, would get up and they'd go make their chocolate soup, and then they'd come back when they were ready. And it was like, I just remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like there are kids her age being put in kindergarten. Like, no, like it does not make sense to me how we could. No, like I just want her to be able to do this forever, I don't know. It's just crazy.
So what would you guys say drew you to end up deciding to homeschool? And how did you get interested in the Waldorf philosophy and find Acorn School?
3.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So COVID led to the rabbit hole of like, what is homeschooling?
Can I say before that too? We had, like Katelyn had alluded to when she was talking about her educational journey, even before we had kids, were like, we know we definitely don't want to send them to public school, but it was mostly because the schools around us, we just knew that the districts were bad or that things were just crazy out there or whatever.
We didn't like,
it wasn't
I
a
didn't
thoughtful,
like my own experience.
It wasn't
either.
necessarily the most thoughtful, like we have a specific alternative we want, but we just knew that like the public school system, unless we lived in a really nice neighborhood or whatever, like that's kind of how it started, was like definitely not public school. So then when we did have kids, it was starting to like, really charter schools or whatever.
Emerson was born 2 weeks after the shutdown, so the world was like crazy. And my good friend at the time, her son was about to enter kindergarten when all the shutdowns happened. So like that summer. And so she was like, well, we're not doing computer school. Like, well, I don't know what that is. And so I think she had a friend who homeschooled. And so her friend was like, you can do it. Like, just do it for a year and see if you like it. Like, it's better than what's happening right now kind of thing. And so she just kind of dove in, and I watched her navigate like what that looks like. And even though now seeing it, she probably does it a lot differently than I plan on doing it. It was just the first time I had seen somebody I know. Yeah, like a mother say like, I can do this. I can educate my children. And she would talk to me about how like she was really nervous because she was like, am I qualified for this? Blah, blah, blah. And then just like kind of watching her go through that journey of questioning herself and the doubt, and then like really gaining confidence and like doing what worked for their family and then seeing them really thrive with it while I had this little baby. So I think
seeing a
that-
5-year-old learn the things
Yeah.
that he needed to learn, and he was figuring
and I'm like, oh,
things out.
they're doing it. Like
Yeah.
they can just do it. And then, so seeing that was kind of like the first time I had seen like, oh, you can just like choose to homeschool your kids. Like, that's cool. So I like kind of told John, like, maybe we could do that. That would be cool. Like, I don't know, and I think that led to like an Instagram search of just like the world of homeschooling. And then it was like, what? Like, I think I went from being like, oh, you can do it to like, this is beautiful and I want to do it. And oh my gosh, look at this. And like, it wasn't just about like all the problems I have with public school. It became about all of the like pros and the beautiful things that could happen if we chose to homeschool. The extra time with my children, the fact that like I will get to cater their education and individualize it for each one, which is something that we talked a lot about with like, we are very different learners. Just like I was saying earlier, like, give me a test, I'll get an A. And John is more of like a hands-on kind of learner. So it was just like
I'm
one
like
of those
an
things.
immerse yourself.
Immerse yourself learner. So it just was cool, the idea that it didn't have to be this like one size fits all kind of thing. Like it could, I just, following accounts where a mom would be talking about like, well, for my daughter, we do this, but for my son, we do this because he prefers it this way. And like, I loved even listening to Olivia talk on the podcast about the way that her mom like taught her math and like completely changed the way that she learns math in order to help her daughter. And I'm like, stuff like that, I would just see, more and more of it. And then once I'm looking at it, the algorithm's like, here's more. And so I'm like, at this point, I've got a 1-year-old and I'm like, we're homeschooling. Like, we are going to homeschool. And then I think from the time she was like a year until she was maybe 2.5. So I'm trying to think when I started looking. She must have been like 2.5. I was just searching and learning about like different methodologies of homeschooling and talking to John about it. And like, we were getting on the same page of like, yes, we definitely want to homeschool.
For me, it terminated on like something alternative to public school. So probably like maybe like a Montessori was like the most like alternative.
Well, but then we sat for a little
thing to
while
me.
and we were like, well, because we hadn't really heard about Waldorf yet or any other thing. And we were like, but Montessori schools, those are so expensive. Like, I was like, so you're telling me my choice is public school or a very expensive alternative education? Like, so then that was the cool thing, I think, for me. When I found out that you could do homeschool and do it in this like beautiful, enriching way, it was like, oh, I'm excited about it.
In a way that allows your kid to thrive, but
Yeah.
it's not like limited by budget because it's not needed.
Yeah. And so then I think from there, once I'm trying to think of like how I specifically learned about Waldorf, because I know I went down to like, what is this Montessori stuff? And we like,
For a little bit of
when Emerson was a toddler, we like did some Montessori-ish things at home, but
Those
I
are
think for me,
dated.
when I found out, because I found out that Montessori is kind of anti like fairy tales. And I was like, what? I love stories. I am like the biggest book nerd. Like I love
and stories.
literature and stories and reading. So I was like, no, that's not for me. Like it just immediately was like, that's not it.
On the
I just
podcast.
think Montessori just means wood and toys. And I'm like,
No. Okay.
Not.
So in
Am I wrong? Because
college,
it feels very like factory to me, like some weird stuff.
it's very
about it.
interesting. But so in college, my best friend, we were doing the same program. So we were in all the same classes, but she needed like to have like a job. So she got hired from a Montessori. And so she had to do like their little training, and she was telling him about it. And she was like, when I'm teaching, I can't move my hands. I have to use the same tone and I have to hold still. And I was like, geez, I'd be terrible at that. Yeah. So then that's been my thing. I'm like, oh, Montessori is just not for me, because I use my hands all the time when I'm like telling a story to kids. I'm very animated. I'm very like, I want to draw them in, and you can't do that. So I would be like,
when I learned about Montessori like toys, that the point is like, here is a toy just to learn how to put this peg into this hole
And do it the right way.
and do it the right way. Yeah.
Every time.
and there's only one right way
I
to do it.
actually hate that. I had that like a Love Every subscription, and most of the toys are wooden like Montessori toys. They have color on them, so they're not purely Montessori. But I used to like Emerson would do it, and I'd be like, oh, yes, she completed
Golf
the
clap.
puzzle. Yeah, look at her. And then the more I watched her, I was like, this is so dumb. Like, why do I care that my 2-year-old learned how to put the peg directly into the right place? And then not only that, she would do it like once or twice and then inevitably try to do it a different way. And it's like, oh, that's not how you're supposed to do the
well,
puzzle.
and I think they correct them all the time in
Yeah, they
Montessori.
do.
I think it's like
But with the
they
same
tell
tone.
them to do it like, don't do it like that.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have
All
to
the
do it
time.
the right way.
Can you imagine just like correcting them all the time? I had Montessori toys too, just because I was drawn to, they were natural
the
and
aesthetic.
there wasn't really, this is Montessori for me.
Yeah.
It just was like, oh, this is beautiful. And
Yeah.
like, I want
That's
my
why I
kid
got
to
them too.
practice
Yeah.
this or
Yeah.
practice that. I thought that Charlie never played with them correctly, ever.
Yeah.
And I couldn't
Sure.
like make him. It's
Yeah.
Charlie. It's not, like you don't make a 2-year-old like, no.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't going to sacrifice my relationship with my child to
No.
correctly play with a toy.
No.
So I wasn't going to tell him what to do all the time. And so then I just was like, what is the point of these?
That's how I felt.
They're not.
And I had
Useful.
like 7 that were all basically the same thing, but they would just like get a little bit more advanced because I had that toy subscription. And it would just, I'd be watching her. She would do it like once and then just
Yeah.
like
But it's
move
like,
it to the side.
Because she's too smart for that.
Yeah.
It's boring.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Mom,
But you
quit
know
giving me
what's
this
so-
puzzle.
I feel like I'm going to be this way when we have children. But I feel like I just love taking things from like a bunch of different like modalities.
Mhm.
That's like my favorite thing. I'm going to have like a mutant looking
Mhm.
system.
I love that.
Just like
Mutants.
pulling it and just create my own, or have like a cauldron of things that I'm just going to throw in here.
I
Because like
love
there are
that.
some things from Montessori that I enjoy. Like
Mhm.
I
course.
love the toy
We
rotations.
still
we have a
do
toy
it.
rotation.
Yes, I love like that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
then there's a lot of things from Waldorf that I love. There's things from Charlotte Mason that I've been
Yeah, me
learning
too.
that I love. So like my future children, hopefully they're just going to have this like cauldron of stuff that will
I
be tailored to them.
Yeah.
Like if
love
they
that.
like
the
it.
point.
Because
That's the
my
point.
child may love
Absolutely.
Montessori stuff. So then I'm going to have to be like, all right, here we
Yeah.
go. Like, you
Do
know.
this puzzle
And
12
yeah,
times.
exactly. Yeah.
Feedback from some Acorn School mothers
Yeah.
that is one of the things that's actually been really important to them about Acorn School is that other places they've gone, it's like we are strictly Waldorf and we do everything Waldorf and you cannot do anything outside of that. And then they feel isolated because they're like, well, I'm not that.
Yeah.
And then they go to a different place and it's the same thing. Well, we are only Charlotte Mason. We do everything
Yeah.
Charlotte Mason. And there's not a lot of places like Acorn School where we're open to
Yeah.
being inspired by
Inspired is
things
our favorite
to
word.
truly
I love
doing
it.
what's best for
Yeah.
your child and
Yeah.
what they're interested in and
Yes.
they which
Yeah,
to
I think
me
it's
is
so
what
much more
real
fun.
Waldorf is
Oh my gosh.
anyways. That's why I like Waldorf is like the principle behind it
Yeah.
isn't to be rigid
Mhm.
only round your corners every day. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
the point of it is to cater to your child
Yes.
and their whole being.
If you're letting
Totally.
it be child led and the child leads themselves to something that you don't agree with, and then you tell them that it's wrong because you don't agree with it, now it's not child led anymore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that's what I was going to say with Emerson. Like, she would do the puzzle and then just like abandon it. And I was like, I'm paying a lot of money for these Love Every subscriptions. And what I found was like, oh, you know what she loves is like
Using
some
them as
dolls
some other
and like
piece.
a little house or like the little she loved the like wooden peg dolls or whatever, or she loves small world play, and that's like a big thing in Waldorf. So it's not even like we're gonna be Waldorf, it's just I'm finding it resonates with my family. Who knows, my next might love Montessori puzzles and do them over and over. But
Luella? I don't know.
I don't think so either.
She's
But
crazy,
Emerson,
man.
she's like imaginative play. Oh my gosh, she will just be in her
That's
own
what
world.
I
And I
think-
love it. The stories, like she's so into stories. So yeah, it's just beautiful.
I think it speaks to children. I really do. I think Waldorf is a modality that
it's
truly
like their language.
speaks to a child's heart.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's I don't think a bunch of forced stuff was like there's not all these agendas to
Yeah.
it, where you had to do it a certain way. It's like, no, really, like
Yeah.
be a kid,
Dude.
be a child.
I think
Just
that's
do
what
that.
resonates with me as a dad so much is because you have the child part of yourself throughout all of school so stamped out of you and you become disconnected with your child self. That's why I stopped going to college, even though I literally had a scholarship to play drums in the jazz band, is because college music department literally sucks all the joy out of music because it just makes it a rigid, like systematic competition. Like there's another drummer and you're competing for the seat or whatever.
Hated
And
that.
it's
He used
like,
to tell me, he's like, I hate that I could tell that this other drummer is like gunning for my part. And he's like, I don't want to.
because then you're like sitting there like with the other guy and like you can tell that you're not actually connecting because all he's thinking about is how he's going to like overthrow you or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's different than
love
like
that.
sports
I
because it's
love
not
that.
sports, it's music, it's art. And then they apply this like other modality to it and it just sucks it all out.
Yeah, you found
Mhm.
yourself when you were removed from that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I feel like, from my own experience, being done with teaching, being done with it, in this past year, I feel like I have found myself
Wow.
and like my mental health has been better. I feel like so happy and like it's crazy. And even with that too, like as an adult, I feel like I've been able to like foster my inner child and kind of like find myself like being done with teaching, and then also shout out to my amazing husband, but having like that type of relationship where you feel so safe and loved
Mhm.
and not like judged. I've just been able, like,
Yeah.
my clothing has been like, I'm just wearing all my fun things. I dyed my hair, like, you know, like I'm just living the dream over here, being out of the system. So yeah, but
Freedom.
I totally
Love
get that,
it.
John. I just think when you're not feeling so oppressed, it's just amazing.
Well, it's freedom.
Yeah.
That's literally the point of Waldorf, is to become free,
Mhm.
to become a free person.
Self, yeah.
And that's what all of us keep talking about, is once we were out of the systems that oppressed you.
Yes,
You
all of
became
the
free,
systems. When Caitlin and I
right?
had Emerson, when Caitlin had Emerson,
Mm-hmm.
we literally were like talking one day, and we're just like, what Caitlin was like, what's the most important value that we're going to want to instill in our kids? And collectively, we're both just like, just be able to think for themselves, or just to be their own forger of their future, or whatever, like what we're talking about.
Mhm. Yeah. So cool. What so rewind. We got way off track, but what brought you guys, how'd you find Acorn School?
Yes. Okay.
Your
Emerson.
stellar marketing.
yes, that is
We brought
all you
John on.
over here.
That's-
yeah.
I wish that was true, but actually it's not,
Your
because we
Facebook market. Wait,
because
okay.
we've been here for so long. I don't think you were marketing really.
No, it was the Facebook group.
Oh yeah, that's true.
She said,
You're right, you're right.
Facebook group. That was
You're
marketing.
right. It was.
Very
It was.
well.
It was guerrilla marketing.
She's like, excuse
She
me.
was out there in the
Excuse me.
community.
Yeah.
I found
Really
you.
was.
That's true. She did. So Emerson turned 3, and I was like, she's 2 years from 5. Like, we got to figure this out. And so the biggest, I
Dude,
know,
that's
that's
so
just my
Caitlin.
personality.
That is the
Yeah.
most Caitlin
But
thing.
like my biggest concern when I decided like we are going to homeschool was like, I will not deprive my child of friendship. Like
Community.
and I know that is a stereotype. Like I know it's silly and it's like whatever. But I feel like the people I knew who were homeschooling their children were heavily
weird.
involved in were heavily involved in their churches. So they had like that type of community, and or they were heavily involved, or they had a lot of family who
You shouldn't have
homeschooled.
said that.
So they
Hold on, let's pause.
You're feeding it to him. You're feeding it.
Okay.
I'm just
Like-
kidding.
yeah, you can't say that. It's a homeschool podcast.
No, I was
John.
just gonna say I do know weird homeschoolers,
But you can't say that.
But
Chad.
it's because
They
they,
don't
were like,
exist.
No, it's okay.
It's
No, it's
because-
okay. I do too. It's fine.
okay, maybe we won't cut this part
I
then,
think
because
everybody
all I was trying to say is that community is really important to us. And
Oh, the
we
weird
didn't
ones
want
don't
to-
have. I see what you're saying. Yes.
The people that we knew were just like in their own little silo, completely detached from everyone else,
Yeah.
which I understand because but I just feel like it's an extreme response where they're like, we just want nothing to do with culture, society, or anybody else. We're just going to be on our bubble and do our own thing.
Mm.
And then there is like a awkwardness to that. where
Yeah,
you're
they like don't understand cultural references. They've never heard, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then it feels like they didn't have.
there's
so
just
many
like
friends.
a disconnect. Yes. They didn't-
And it was important to me, not that Emerson understand all cultural references, but that she have like real friendships. And I just was looking around like we have family, but like nobody else Emerson's age. So it's not like she could like
Yeah, we were
go
the
through
first
it with
people in our
anybody.
family
We're
to
the
have
first
kids.
ones who are choosing to homeschool in my family. And I'm like, where are we going to do this? Like she needs somebody to do it with, you know? And also me, I need other moms to talk to. I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I know I can do it, but I'm like, I still was like, how do I start? Where do
At
I
this
go?
point,
What
we
are
had
the
moved from like Central
laws here?
Phoenix,
Like-
and we moved away from all
Yeah.
of the friendships that we had had over the past 10 years. And so we were just like starved for community
Mhm.
ourselves as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was kind of like a two-handed thing where I was like, I really want something to go to where I can take Emerson and she can make friends. She was 3, but I was like, just to socialize and be around other people. Also, as a stay-at-home mom, like she wasn't around a lot of other kids very often. I have a small
Especially
family.
with COVID.
Yeah, and then with COVID when she was born, so it was just like on my brain a lot of like I would love to find something. So
With
she
no intention
literally-
of finding a like-minded community necessarily.
yeah,
because
that was a surprise
we're-
bonus.
we
I
were like-
thought-
That was
yeah,
shocking.
I thought like
There's so
we'll
many
just go to like some
Life
class, you know?
Mm.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Boom. Yeah.
Because we are the ones that are like the weird ones who are like wearing barefoot shoes, and we're talking about eating organic food and like all the things. Like,
Organic food. Gas.
yeah, I know. Like
You could not be
The horror.
less weird at
Yeah.
Acorn
I know,
School.
yeah.
That's
like
the
those are
most
like bare
basic-
minimum.
it's
Yeah.
like
I know,
where
you
do you
know, yeah.
shop? Yeah, where do you
The
shop?
conversations that happen.
Yeah.
No, but so she turned 3 in February, and I just start searching like online. I'm looking on Instagram, searching hashtags, just like nature co-op, East Valley, nature co-op, Phoenix. And I'm like, I'll drive, whatever it is. I just want something that's outside. That it was really, really, really important to me that it was not a drop-off thing. I wanted to be there with her the whole time. My kids have never been in daycare. I'm a stay-at-home mom. Like I was like not leaving her with strangers. So and a lot of the ones I would find were like a drop-off situation, or like there's a couple of nature preschool type
I
things.
saw those too.
Yeah, and I was like, that's not at
I
all.
tried
what
to
I want.
go. I was like, can I come? They're like, no.
What,
That's
just by
weird.
yourself?
No.
No,
No
she wanted
kids?
to go with her kids.
With
And
Charlie.
they were like, no.
There's like these like
can't be
nature
here.
preschools. That
Stars
was like so
can I
cute.
paint?
Just
I mean, I
start peeking through
would.
the bushes.
But if I
not
didn't
creepy.
have Goldie and Scarlett and everybody running over me, I'd paint with them.
Yeah, totally.
No,
but
I do
yeah.
at home. But yeah, I asked. I was like,
And
"Can
they
I
don't like
stay?"
it.
And they're like,
No.
No.
Yeah. Especially once I decided like homeschool is an option. Because I think is what we're doing. Before we got there, I had, like you said, like kind of a little bit of cognitive dissonance of like, well, if I find this like perfect, beautiful alternative school that isn't a public school, like that one will be safe.
Yeah, if our income
Nothing
suddenly
bad will happen
increases,
there.
we'll just do a private school. That's probably the best option.
Yeah, and
we'll
then-
homeschool as an alternative until then or whatever.
Yeah, but then once I like learned how beautiful homeschooling could be, it was like, no, we're in this. And so I had a very particular list though. I was like, if we're gonna do this, I want community, I want nature, I want all the things. So she turns 3 and I'm literally just like scouring the internet for everything. Like a month would go by and I would check again. So I was literally doing it like monthly. I would just look on all the like Facebook local homeschooling groups that I joined with a 3-year-old, but I was like, one day I will, they like make you answer questions to get in. I have a 3-year-old, but I plan to homeschool. So I like joined all of those and I just kept searching and I would like keyword search like nature, co-op, whatever. And literally from February until October, I was searching every month. And I think you guys started in October. So like something weird happened where like that month that you posted in the group, I like must have had just checked the week before.
Yeah.
So then I didn't see it until the next time I checked,
Yeah.
like a month later, and you guys had already started. But I was like, I think I Instagram messaged or emailed.
You did.
and
You're like, I messaged them and I was like, ever since like she's technically 3,
she's not 4
I
yet.
think they're gonna. I hope they answer.
Yeah, I was like so nervous because I was like, it was perfect. Like what you put on there, everything. I was like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. So I was like, she's not 4 yet, but please, do you have any openings? Like you guys had already done one class, and I was like, or if not, can I like sign up for next month? Like I just was like desperate to like do this,
You're such a good mom.
just really wanted.
You are.
I really wanted it for her, and I don't know who I emailed first. I think it was Star,
I think I was doing the
Back then,
emails.
I think you were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you're like, funny enough, we just had a family leave, like can't continue after the first class. If you want to come next week, and I was like, I want to come next week. Sign me up. So I signed up.
Yep.
So this was the
And-
second week of Acorn
Yeah.
School. Then?
So we've only missed. Well, I mean, aside from illness and
Being
other.
sick, yeah.
But yeah, we joined the second
second day.
week of
Mhm.
Acorn School,
Aw.
and boy, has it grown.
Yeah.
Oh,
geez,
yeah.
Yeah.
Very
You missed my microphone.
I was just gonna say when
I know,
we
you
came,
said the first
Emilirose still had a microphone.
Oh, I still have the second class?
You did.
Oh,
You
that's
had a microphone.
embarrassing.
I need.
Yikes.
I wish we had a photo of them.
I
Oh,
do.
No, I
Do
don't.
you?
Yes.
Oh,
We'll post it one
no.
day.
Oh, God.
I do have photos.
Yeah, that was my
You were so
security
great.
blanket.
You were
It's
so great.
fine.
No, it was great, and
was
like
great.
everybody was so nice, and it was just immediately like
I remember when you came back.
I
and
was
you were
so
like,
I was nervous because like I am not like I like having friends, but I don't like meeting. It makes me
Yeah.
nervous. So I was like, I'm gonna go to this place with all these moms, and like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not homeschooling yet. Like I was like, how are people gonna be toward me? You know what I mean? And everybody was
I remember you.
so nice.
Yeah, I remember we talked after, and you were like, it's amazing. You're telling me about the people. Like, there's like kids, like this one kid, like just didn't want to wear shoes. And his mom was like, okay, just don't wear your shoes then. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's amazing.
I love it.
Like,
Oh my
all
God.
the stories you could tell after that.
I know. Well, I've never been around other moms similar to me. So
Yeah.
it was actually so crazy.
so
to
refreshing,
go,
probably,
Yes.
to be like, oh,
And like
life-giving.
validating and like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh.
Validating.
And then I remember too, really early on talking to Emily, actually, like maybe the 3rd or 4th class, and just like, oh, so like, which one's yours? And she's like, oh, Connor. And we're all talking. And then she, I think I asked her, like, so are you like already homeschooling? Like, what? And she's like, well, yes, we kind of follow the Charlotte Mason. And I was like, tell me more. And so then like having these conversations with the different moms about like how they choose to homeschool and like what her journey looked like going to that was just like really
Oh my gosh.
life-giving for me. And immediately I told John, I'm like, this is it. Like I found it. Like this, I feel not only did like I make friends, my daughter's making friends. It was so good for her just immediately to be around kids and be outside that much and like the crafts and just, I could tell she was just loving every minute of it. But on top of all of that, it was like, oh, I literally just gained an entire mom support group for any homeschooling question I could possibly come across. Like, how cool is this? Women who've already done it, who are doing it, who are figuring out that anything that I want to know or just pick their brains about, and they're all more than willing to. Like,
Mhm.
it's not like
we love to talk about it.
they love it. Like, it's, oh, you want to know this is what we're doing. And
We're
it's like,
doing a podcast about it now.
literally,
Yeah.
I know, it's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was just the coolest thing to go from like, I don't want public school, I want to homeschool, and it can be this beautiful thing. But like, I definitely had that like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, you know, it
I
feels
remember you. I
overwhelming.
remember you talking about, you're like, I want to get like a little curriculum.
Yeah,
It was like this. Like
Yeah.
you were talking about wanting something like we have now.
yeah.
You're like, maybe I'll do something to go with the themes each week at
Nice.
Yeah.
Acorn School. And I remember you talking about it.
I totally did. I know when
And
I found out
I-
you guys were doing one, I was like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need it. I know. Well, and it was funny because I was so, I mean, she wasn't even 4 yet, but I was just like, oh, and I'm like asking
I
everybody
was
all
the
the
same
questions.
way.
And I wanted to know all the
Yeah.
things. And I was like,
Yeah.
what am I going to do? And I was like making these plans. And then the more that I was there, I was like, oh, actually, this is all she needs. She doesn't need anything else.
Because we're programmed to think
I was
that we're
like,
just
she
that.
literally needs no
reliant
more
on
than
these
this.
outside things.
You know what's so funny? And I'm just realizing this is just like smacking me in the face, and you'll probably be able to confirm this. But I was like trying to think about Katelyn that month, and I can't think of you. All I can think about is Emerson. And I don't know if it's
she's
because
cute.
it's the teacher
She's
in
a
me,
big person.
but I remember Emerson that first month, and looking at her now, it blows my mind.
She's nervous at
And like
first,
even
I
Star
remember.
can attest.
She
to this.
wouldn't sit in circle.
When she's talking about somebody, I'm like, you've got to tell me the child's name because that's all I remember. And then I'm like, oh, then I can kind of picture the parent. Not
Yeah.
that I'm like, I'm just not used to having
You're
the parents
teaching
around.
Yeah.
in
Yes.
a different position.
Yes,
talking
totally.
To the moms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's always helpful if you just give me the kid's name. I'll know who you're talking about. But
yeah.
but
She's
no,
starting
like-
to say she just remembered your name right now. 'Cause she,
She's
she's like,
you're Katelyn,
you're
right?
Emerson's mom. I knew it.
now because I like we're like friends. But
Well, no, but it's
but no, like
crazy to think
Emerson's
back.
growth has
Yeah.
just been it's
Yeah.
been so cool.
Well,
I
she
love
wouldn't sit
it.
in circle for the first month. She sat in my lap because, and like I said, they've never been in daycare, not even like a drop off at the gym situation. Like the only people who've ever watched my kids is like my mom, my sister, and his sisters. That's it. And even then, not often, just for like, you know, important
Like
things.
right now.
Yeah. So I when I first went, I'm not gonna lie, like the first 2 weeks, I felt like an internal pressure. I was like, you have
Yeah.
to go join the kids.
Yeah.
Like we're here, we're paying for this. Like you can't just sit in my lap the whole time.
Everybody does that.
Yeah. And I would try to make her and it would backfire. And then she would be like more implanting against me and like, what are you doing, mom? And I don't recall who it was. One of you amazing moms, I remember, also had a nervous child. And I watched the mom just be like, all right, you can sit with me whenever you want. And I was like, what? Like, I don't have to like make her. Like she'll do it, you know, when she's ready. And it's just like a switch went on. And like the more that I'm around that type of attitude and behavior, it's so good for me because I tend to be like more worrisome as a mom and just in life in general. So it's like been the coolest thing because it's growth for me and for Emerson, where like she was so nervous when we first came, like wouldn't participate, would only play with kids like in a one-on-one situation. And now she's like
Oh my gosh.
Ringleader.
He's so
Today-
social, yeah.
So
We're
social.
finally at the point where I can talk about this. I've been holding on to this because I literally witnessed it today with Emerson and her like good friend, who also has grown a lot.
Yeah.
But they're literally now telling each other, "I didn't like that. That really hurt my feelings." And then
Really?
then they're fine and they move on and they go play.
That's
It's the most beautiful
amazing.
thing.
Yeah.
My like jaw dropped and I'm like, I didn't even have that level of communication as an adult.
Yeah.
And I'm like
I
with
learned
my
how to do
friends.
that last week.
Like,
Okay.
I'm gonna be honest with
But
you.
that's because
Yeah.
her mom and my mom or her mom and me are both there.
Yes.
And when things happen,
exactly.
we both take our child aside. We talk to our child individually about it. I'm making sure she's okay. I'm talking to her about how she could handle that with her friend next time. Her mom is doing the same thing with her. And then they go back together. And then me and the mom come together and we're like, hey, what do you think about that? What are you doing? Oh, that's great. Do you have any concerns? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like this beautiful thing where I'm like, if I wasn't here, would I even hear about that thing that happened? Like, the fact that I can even help her walk through that, walk through the hurt feelings, walk through the, hey, it's not nice to talk to people that way. All of those things that it's like, might a teacher see and mark it on the thing and then maybe I could address it? Maybe, but
Yeah.
probably not. Like,
No,
I'm
for
so
sure.
thankful that as she is growing in these like social ways that I'm able to like walk with her through it. It's been the coolest thing. Like,
No,
honestly,
and
one of my
that's
favorite
like I
things
wanted
about
to bring it up because
Yeah.
and the reason why my like jaw dropped is because these two children at Acorn School have
Who
better
are not even
communication-
5,
who are not
4
even
years old.
5,
Yeah.
who are 4 years old, have better communication skills with each other as friends than 90%.
Yeah.
I'm actually not going to throw out a number because I'm making it up. But
What's the
then most-
percentage, Emily Rose?
I'm just going to say most adults.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Totally.
going to be honest. I am a deep-rooted people pleaser.
Yeah.
And when it came to my friendships, I always just wanted to do like, oh my gosh, I want them to like me. I think it's going to be fine. And I'm going to say this because it's going to make you feel really good.
Okay.
But my communication skills have grown so much in the past year that I've been running a business with Star because we have had to interface and we have a friendship and we're running a business and I can't always people please her. Like, I have to be straight up with you. You have to be straight up with me. And so you have helped my communication grow by leaps and
Good.
bounds. So
That's amazing.
yes, you've
Good.
made me a better person and a better
Good.
friend. But yeah,
Good.
so anyway, it's really cool to see that at Acorn School happening for these kids at a young age.
I love that. And I wanted to talk about that too from what you said about I watch that with the moms a lot. And that's one of the things that makes me really happy is that everybody shows up with this expectation of like how their kids should be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, like they should sit in the circle and they should do the craft correctly. And then they need to know the song and they need to know,
Yeah.
it's this like
Should
we've been
have that.
programmed to go, I'm paying for some kind of education. You need to learn the education. Then you need to be able to pass the test about the
Yeah.
education
Mm.
that I'm teaching you. And I watch the moms that do start to lay back and go, oh, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't need to make my kid go do this. And then what happens is the kids intrinsically want to go do the thing,
Yeah.
right? Because if you're not
Absolutely.
making her do it, then she eventually wants it. She wants to know what's happening in that story. She wants to know the song. She wants to do the craft. She wants to do these things. And I
Yeah.
think that's where parents also just like shoot themselves in the foot is that they try to force their kids to do things when they're too young, when they're
Yeah.
not ready, and they push their kids into things, and then the kids don't like things
Yeah.
and they rebel. When it's like, if you just waited
Yeah.
and just let them be,
Do their own thing.
they would do it because
They'd
they
arrive there.
wanted to.
No, totally.
I think
Yeah.
it comes from a good place, but it's all the parents' ego.
It-
You
and
said it
Yeah,
in the
fear.
other
it's
podcast.
ego.
It's
Yeah.
fear.
Well,
It's fear, and I think it
insecurities,
comes
too.
from a good place. But
Yeah.
I
It's
like you
think
want
what the
what's
true
best
for
them.
root is.
Well, and like I think it was like the first 2 classes, I was like, oh my gosh, like you're supposed to do it. Like I was like really worried about it. And then I had that experience with the one mom. And I think the next class, Emerson just sat in my lap the entire time and I said nothing. I was just like, I'm just going to not say a single time. I'm not even going to say like, do you want to join? Because I by no means was like, go sit in a circle. But I was like, hey, hun, like, do you want to do it? And I think she was perceiving that as pressure, like
Mhm.
looking at it now, because she was like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't know who any of these people are. I'm at a park I've never been to, it's like a lot all at once. So like, finally, then she just sat with me and I just was like, okay, we're just going to sit. I'll just sit with you the whole time. That's fine. And she just observed everything. And like by that 4th class, she was like, I'm going to go to circle, mom. And like went by herself.
Yes.
Like, didn't even
What I
take-
love about
it took
what we're
one class of me just being like, okay, you'll do it when you're ready. And then she did it.
What I love about this conversation too is I know somebody else with a child that's Emerson's age, and he's really set on putting her in an extremely rigid, I won't even say the name of it, but it's just like a very specific type of education that's like very structured and like militaristic in a sense. And he specifically said, when I pushed back a little bit about like, well, does it need to be that way? Is that best for their development? He was like, well, what I really want my daughter to learn is how to be able to make the most out of any situation that she's in, even if it's not like her preferred way of learning, that she can adapt to whatever environment she's in, which I understood what he was saying. But when I'm hearing two 4-year-olds have that type of conflict resolution because they were left alone and they were able to figure out how to be humans on their own, what that tells me is you don't have to put them into this like crazy rigid structure because you're afraid they're not going to learn those things, because they're human beings. They're going to figure it out.
Trust in humans.
100%.
It's a complete lack of belief that a human has an internal desire to learn, that they even responsibility for themselves.
Or that they're capable.
And this is just a big discussion because there's one camp that like feels like we should be responsible for everybody else and we need to do it for them. We need to give them the right information. We need to teach them correctly. We need to do all this stuff for people in order for them to thrive.
Yeah, we're not going to translate the text for you from Latin because we'll just tell you what it says and just trust us. This is what I said. You couldn't understand it anyway.
Exactly.
We're connected to
and there's another camp that then goes, no, people should be responsible for themselves. To learn exactly what they need to learn and do all the things they need to do.
Because we have a high view of people
because
they can be responsible for themselves. Yes.
And I think that's like the difference in the world in a lot of ways is people that believe in human beings, ability to thrive and learn, and people who think people are kind of stupid.
Yeah.
Honestly, and they're just like a shell that needs to be stuffed with stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's really sad. And I think that we've been a lot of the world, the way our system is set up is to believe people are not that smart and they need to be fed everything.
Yeah.
And so we are unlearning that and remembering like our children are brilliant whole people that can do this. And people get scared like, well, you're just coddling them or you're being passive or you're doing these things. It's not that at all. It's hard. It's actually hard. It would be easier in some ways to just like make Charlie do whatever I wanted him to do.
Yeah.
It's hard to sit back and go, okay, like I trust you and I'm going to be there to foster and support you, but I'm not going to try to control you and make you do it the way that I want you to out of my fear or my ego. Right? So it's just big. I think it's just really cool that we're talking about that because I think that's
it's such a Western thing too. Because like in that book Hunt, Gather, Parent, she talks about this big time where she says like a lot of well-meaning parents will say like, oh, come help me with dinner, little toddler, little 3-year-old or whatever, and the toddler comes up. They're all excited and they start to chop and the parent immediately, exactly. No, not like that. No, they need to be shaped this way for the child or whatever. And then that immediately deflates the child. They're just they no longer want to help. And then they won't ask next time. And it's like, I love that when she mentioned that in the book, that in a lot of other cultures around the world, there's just such a different dynamic with that. They invite children alongside and they just let them do it. And they literally use such little words. There's no correction taking place. So long as the child is safe and everything's fine, like they will just let them do it their way. And then over time, the more that the child does it, they learn and they get older and they watch and they observe and they do it better and better. And like you never had to go through this whole like, imposing your own will and like, oh, you got to do it my way type of thing. The child gets there on their own. And another side bit to that, she was saying that a lot of times children see things differently and they will choose to do it a way that you hadn't thought of. And that happens to me still. Like just the other day
creatively, individually contribute in their
right. They have their own brains.
Value. Yeah.
Just the other day we were like unloading groceries and I have these like yerba mate canned drinks that I order a lot of every week. And so Emerson was putting them in the fridge and they come in like these boxes. So I was literally getting ready to tell her like, oh no, honey, you have to do it like turn them on their side or they won't all fit. Like they fit in there kind of funky. And I was about to say it. And then I just like zipped my lips and stepped back because she was almost done. And I like looked, I was like, oh my God, it fits better her way. I love that. And I just like I never tried it a different way. Yeah. But like her little brain tried it a completely different way. And it fit better and I do it her way now.
Emerson does everything differly and I think it's the best. Like she's
not just
like
children. They like always
the kid who's like coloring and like coloring the hair, crazy colors and like she'll draw and add on to the coloring and all of that. It's like awesome. I love it.
I can only imagine what our country or like our community would be like if from a young age you were just able to follow your interest.
We'll find out in 25 years when Acorn
I
School's
know,
been around for
right?
25 years.
Can you imagine like having that your whole childhood and you getting a job that makes you happy because it was your interest and you learned everything about it? Can you imagine
Dude,
the
yes.
amazing community would be? Like everyone would be happy. They'd be doing what they want to do and what they're good at. I think so
that's-
too. I think so too because
I think we
now it
moved away
feels
from
the
that.
opposite of that.
Well, that's one of the
But
things
it's
that
like
we were talking
things were doing
We talked about this last night.
Who were like became the medicine man and
They
their
wanted to,
culture is
and they
because they were
loved it.
interested in they loved plants and they loved helping people and they
Yeah.
thrived, and that's why
And they had the
became that
opportunity to
person.
see
Or the
other people
village
who are already
midwife who
doing
like saw her
Love
grandma
the
delivering
babies,
babies and was
yeah.
like, I want to do that when I get older.
We talked
Yeah.
about this last night. One thing that's really cool that I'm excited about with homeschooling is that it is really empowering that you can choose to do whatever you want to do. So Emerson is being raised by a woman who already owns her own business, and she's around you guys as entrepreneurs. And so many of the families that are already in Acorn School were just like, I don't want to have to work for someone else. I'm going to start my own business. And they're successful in doing that. And now even in her education, she's going to be able to be like, I can choose how I decide to learn, and I don't have to spend 8 hours
An
learning.
empowerment.
That's what I see as the real world, is like not doing busy work at school and spending 8 hours doing work just because you have to or whatever, but like being the most efficient with your time and doing what you need to do, and then deciding that, you know what, now I want to go do this other thing. And the entrepreneurs that I know who are highly successful are getting their like multiple businesses done in 4 hours, and they're off skiing and they're doing retreats and they're doing spiritual things, and they're
Read
Renaissance
books.
people or whatever, and they're having a really rich life. And like the work piece of it is fulfilling to them. Because it's just like from an innate place of what is exciting to them. And then they get to do all these other things. And then it all somehow intertwines with all the other things that they do. And then they have all these multiple like connections in all the different parts of their life because they're just following what their interests are.
I feel like that's exactly what happened at Acorn School.
Yeah. I was like, you're describing
my
their
life.
Yeah.
What happened is like I was like, I want to start this, and then it literally has like grown all these people and these connections and all these different. I mean, we're all sitting here
Yeah.
doing this,
Yeah.
talking
That's
about
so
this. It's
true.
just cool what you're saying, because that's I don't feel like I'm working.
Yeah.
Ever.
Oh,
I mean, sometimes.
Yeah. Well, actually,
When I have to
yeah.
order supplies, I feel like I'm working, or like
And there's a
split
problem.
little-
Paintbrushes.
Yeah.
or like something goes wrong. But aside from that, I feel like I'm literally living my dream life every day, just doing what I would want to do anyways.
Yeah.
But I love what you just said too, because part of life is sometimes you're doing things that you don't want to do, and that's just part of the experience.
Yes.
And like you're learning
And
and
that's
showing
the
how to
critique
live through
people
that.
get on the unschooling thing.
Yeah.
As people say, well, how do they learn to like do what they don't feel like doing? Charlie has to do things he doesn't feel like doing all the time.
Yeah.
And he is unschooled in my belief. I am unschooling. I love Waldorf and I love Charlotte Mace. We incorporate everything, but like an overarching, I would say, is unschooling. And he does stuff all the time he doesn't want to do. He rolls his eyes. He's, why do I have to do this? Or, whatever
Yeah.
it is, because he's a part of a family.
And they're so
Yeah.
young right now, though. But when they get older, like you're talking about with the conflict resolution, like, it's something that you're really not going to want to do. And you've seen it since you were 4. And so you know that you have to do it. It's like apologizing because you did cross the line with somebody. And now you have to go and make that thing right.
Or
maybe
you
you
have to
decided
draw
to
a
lie.
boundary with
Or you have to
somebody.
draw.
Yeah.
Yes. You know how
Do
hard
you know
that
how
is?
many boundaries I haven't
Bruh,
drawn?
same.
And then now I'm like
Yeah.
a
Now you have
boundary
to
for
undo
all.
it.
I'm like,
Yeah.
Like
this
the
is my
social
boundary.
skills.
Those are
Yeah.
hard things
You
that
still
you
have
don't
to
want
learn
to do.
all of those things
That's
and
being
do
human.
them. Yeah. But it's like,
Oh,
just
I
because he
didn't
doesn't
learn
have to
those.
do a test,
Yeah.
people
therefore he can't learn life skills. I don't understand. Like we learn life skills in other
I feel
ways.
like in
through
our
life.
community, just in our culture in general, there's like this cliche, like, okay, just picture this. And I had this happen to me recently. Someone's like, oh, like, what do you have to do today? Everyone's default is, just gotta go to work.
Yes. Yes.
Just
yes.
gotta go do that
Oh, is
thing
it Friday
that makes
yet?
me money. Darn, like it's
That's
the
so
worst.
low energy.
Yeah.
I hate
Somebody
being around
asked me that at a coffee shop, and I was about to regurgitate that just blech, okay? And then I was like, wait, that's not how I feel. I love my job.
Yeah.
I
You were
own
gonna
my
go-
own business.
yeah,
Can
yeah.
you imagine if I said that and it's my own business? Like awkward, weird.
Yeah.
But I love it.
Yeah.
And I felt
get
so
to
proud
do
to be
these
able to
things,
say
yeah.
that because
Yeah.
when I was teaching, I would have regurgitated that cliche answer because that's how I felt. But now I'm like,
Because
I
you're
love
dissociated all
going.
the time on
Yeah, I feel so
autopilot.
healed from
Dude,
being
that's awesome.
I'm not teaching very
frequencies.
much
Yes.
anymore at Acorn School, but
I
Frequencies.
100% agree. Yeah. I can't
but
be around
I
that
love
kind of
being
draining
around
energy
that.
all the time of people that
Yeah.
are just like,
Well, eventually you're just not. That's the cool thing about it, in
Mhm.
my opinion, is eventually you just aren't. Yeah. It's just
seriously,
like
Come
because
to
you
our
are
side.
you're at a different.
I just don't
You
know
repel.
people like
I
that.
think it just repels those
Mhm.
people.
So to wrap things up,
Yeah.
how do you feel like Acorn School and being a part of Acorn School has changed and affected your family as a whole?
That's a good question. A lot. I
Like
don't know.
with your children,
Everything.
yourselves, like what areas,
Um,
just be specifically the areas in your life that you noticed you've had change, or how it's affected your kids, your own friendships, your own business, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, several things. I think personally for me, a lot of clarity around like what do I want our lifestyle to look like as
Yeah.
homeschooling parents? Like what do I want our family lifestyle? What do I want our daily, everything
Like, where
to
do
be?
we want to live? Do we want to live
Yeah,
near
like-
nature?
Yeah, and
versus
that sort of thing,
living
but
in a
also like
city and-
for me, clarity around like I don't want to be working all the time. I want to have the time to really invest in my kids' education and like be at the Acorn School things, be at the outings. And then even for John, like moving towards a job solution for him where he has more flexibility, because one of the things I love about Acorn School is that like dads are here and grandmas are here and aunts are here. And I like would love for him to be able to come more too. So there's been a lot of like intentional shifting of lifestyle towards funnily enough ways. How can we be more involved in Acorn School, right? Like,
but
more involved in
with your
homeschooling.
family.
Yes, the
Yeah.
whole
Because
family.
it's family centered.
Yes.
It's not just like, oh, I want to be involved in Acorn School because
Yeah.
it's Acorn School. It's
Yeah.
because it evolves your family to be
Yeah.
closer and more connected and
No,
in
absolutely.
relationship.
Like
with,
when there's an outing on a weekend for Acorn School and Emerson finds out that it's on a Saturday, so like John can come, she's like, Dad gets to come to the
Even
outing
Luella-
with my friends.
Luella,
Like,
who's not even 2 yet.
Yeah.
Last week when we did the outing, we were all getting ready to leave the door, go out the door, and as Katelyn's going outside, Luella turns around and goes, "Bye, Dad." And I was like, "Dad's coming. I'm coming with you." And she was like, "Dad's coming. Dad's coming." She's not even
Yeah.
2 yet.
That's so sweet.
so, but like I love that so much that it's like, how do we have more of it? Because I do want, like, especially listening to Olivia's episode about like the lessons she would get with her dad, the geography lessons. I thought that
Mhm.
was the cutest thing. So I'm like, absolutely, I want us to have a lifestyle where like the kids could go with John to work for a day or something, and like both of us could be involved in their home education. Like I will be the primary educator, but I love seeing all the families and like the different ways that they're involved, and like not even just the parents, but even grandparents who are involved, and like my sister-in-laws are involved, and like different things like that. It's been really, really cool just to see the different ways everybody does things. So I think for one would be just realizing like what's important to us and what do we want that to look like, and what changes can we make like in my business and his job of like supporting that goal and dream more. And especially because Emerson's not like even I'm not homeschooling her yet. So it's really cool to be getting that insight now. Like I love that the class starts at 4 years old, because then parents who are planning to homeschool can kind of like dip their toe in and start to like ask around and like get a vision for what you want before you're like there yet.
Mhm.
And that's been really, really cool for us. Number two would be, oh my gosh, I feel like for Emerson, like she's going to be friends with these kids her whole life. Like I can say that confidently. Like I know that. Like she loves these children. Like
But-
it's so sweet.
what I think is really the reason you can say that confidently, and this is one of the things that I think is really cool, is that you've found a very like-minded community
Yes.
for yourself.
Yes.
Because I can
Mhm.
say that there's kids that will confidently probably be Charlie's friends for life because I like their parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not
Absolutely.
because, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, because he found Billy
Yeah.
at the park
No,
and he really
it's
likes Billy
because-
at the park.
It's because
Like-
I will be planning play dates.
Exactly.
No, totally.
That's
For
the
yourself
huge
and your
part.
children.
It's
And
like-
that's okay. Like that's good. And it's kind of
That's
crazy to think,
huge.
yeah, like if she did make a friend at a public school and then we unfortunately like had very different family values from their family, like that would be hard to navigate. It just would be. Like it's not a bad thing. I would never be like, oh, you can't be friends with so and so. But I think the fact that we're surrounded
the
by
things that are
families,
the most important
Yes.
to us are also important to
the
other
most
people that we
important.
know.
yeah, then it's like, oh, well, this is just easy.
We're able
like,
to fully
let's go
be
camping
ourselves.
together. Let's hang out together. Let's do birthday parties together, because I love not only Acorn School, but the families, the people. Like that's just been absolutely
There's
life-changing.
literally no topic where we're where it's like, oh, we're going to be around so-and-so. So make sure you don't talk about that one thing. We can talk about this, but don't. And you have to like remember all the weird rules about who you're hanging out with.
I feel like it feels like a very just like open space. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I've overheard conversations of moms talking about things that like I have no idea about, but it's cool that like they're connecting on it. And I'm like, oh, how fun. Or like these moms over here are like knitting together and that's a thing they do. Or like I talk about books all the time with Emilirose and others. And it's just like
with
so
an
fun.
Acorn School dad the other day for 3 hours. It was supposed to be 1
did.
hour.
So cool.
It was supposed to be an hour. But no, yeah. So like that, the friendships for Emerson and then for ourselves, like those family relationships that we were really, really desperate for, especially moving to like a new side of like a new city, not having a lot of that here. Like we have family here, but like I said, like you want to be surrounded by other families with kids in similar ages. Like, yeah, it's just been really, really cool to have that. And then as a mom, a step further, oh my gosh, are you serious? Like seeing how another mom handles like a random meltdown or something, like something I've been struggling with Emerson and like I can't figure out how to break through, or even something that I'm feeling a lot of mom shame and like guilt about because I'm not handling it well. And then seeing a mother mom be like, oh, I'm struggling with that also is like, it's like balm for my soul. Like literally, I look forward to class so much because of that reason, like to be able to get advice from other moms, to be able to be seen, to be able to be just like acknowledged that like, yeah, this is hard. Like being a mom is hard. Being a homeschooling mom is hard, you know, and like being able to be validated in that way is huge. Like
it's like moms weren't, it's this whole, no one was ever meant to just live in isolation and just be alone for 24 hours a day without community, especially as a mom, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
well, and that's what I was going to say before
like
coming to Acorn School, I was like, especially having a baby, like around COVID time, like you were saying, like I literally would just be alone with Emerson all day. Like maybe I'd go see my sister and my niece, but like that would be it. Maybe I'd go to the zoo.
That's one of the things.
It wasn't like community. If it had left the house, it wasn't community, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's one of the things I wanted to touch on that happens in the classes because of the structure is that you see the same group of people 3 hours every week. Entertained, you're sitting and talking to their moms.
3 hours.
The moms have to be there.
Yeah.
So the parents do. So it's not like you can drop off and sometimes the mom's there.
Yeah.
Like, and so I feel like that part plus the outings and the festivals make it, because I didn't know when we started Acorn School that would happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I knew I didn't want it to be, I knew how I wanted it to be, but what I didn't know that it was going to attract this super interesting group of people that would like each other as much as they do and become friends and have a lot of similar values without it being like we're all the same religion.
Yeah.
Or we're all the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We're like all different.
So many different walks of life.
Spiritual beliefs, political beliefs, like
all over.
All kinds of beliefs. But there's like this commonality when it comes to seeking freedom, believing your children are whole people, the way people are parenting, attachment parenting. Most people are home birthing. Most people are, living lives outside of the systems, medical educational systems.
But I also
right?
love too, like on that note, that like with moms in our group, like everybody's just kind of like, oh yeah, everybody's like different.
Yeah.
But even if they hear something,
exactly.
even if they hear something that they don't agree with, they're not like,
No.
like, no, it's just like, oh, okay, cool. You're doing you. Like,
Not
you know,
even
like,
that.
That's what I
In
want my
fact,
kids to be raised
there will
on.
usually be a follow-up question like, oh, what led you to that?
Yeah,
And then it'll
it's, like,
spark this
curious.
like
Curiosity.
actual.
We talk about this all the time.
Like a conversation of like, wow, two people having a conversation about different beliefs about something.
less
Amazing.
judgment, more
We
curiosity.
talk about this all the time. I think one of our strengths just as people is that we've always been people who are willing to change our minds. And it's not like we flippantly change our minds about things all the time, but if we will be curious about things and learn. If we're presented with new information,
But that's Acorn School families.
we'll let our
That's what I mean. It's thinkers.
evolve.
It's people who really like to think why they're choosing what they're choosing. And I remember that with you guys when you first came. I remember we were sitting there and I don't know who people are, you know, and like you just kind of judge people based on what they look like. You don't know. You're just like, oh, this is a mom here with her 3-year-old. Like, I don't know you. Does that make sense? And then we were talking and then we started talking about home birth and we started talking about free birth and we started talking about all these things. And I was like, what? But more and more people were like that.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, I know about this. I know things that I was really interested in that I thought I'm a freak.
Me
I'm
too.
a weirdo that I like these things.
So that's what I was
and then
going to
people
say.
were like, I like those things too.
The literal only other place I've ever been similar is these niche Facebook mom groups that are online.
Yeah.
So it's people
virtual.
I've never met. It's virtual, but I can pop on and be like, my daughter has this weird rash. What would you guys do? You know what I'm saying? And to have that, but 10 times better
Real people.
in person with real people who my child is friends with and I'm friends with is I hit the jackpot. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yes. Stacy is
Everybody
the best.
needs a Stacy.
When we went through
Shout out
real,
to Stacy.
Shout out to Stacy.
when we went through real, actual medical things with Emerson recently because she was sick. Katelyn was texting nonstop
And
with
Stacy.
us.
Yeah, I'm up to And okay, that's a good
tearing
point.
up. I'm so
I literally
grateful for this
did. I
person.
cried because it was a really stressful couple of weeks. We just kept dealing with illness and having to take Emmy to urgent care and stuff. And I had more than one person not only check in, but check in
Follow
days
up.
later, follow up, and that was just oh my gosh, I felt so loved. And
Katelyn has
people
always
really
been the
cared.
person who
Yeah.
has been the one that does the following up, and no one ever follows up.
Yeah, I've just had crap luck with friends over the years where it's kind of one sided. So I literally told John, I was like multiple moms, hey, how's Emmy? And even Emilirose, she's in Japan. And she's
I was like,
how's Emerson?
I was really telling Matt, I was like, what time is it? I got to check on
it's
Katelyn.
real. We actually care about each other's kids and about each other and about what's happened. It's not oh, it'd be nice. I'm a nice person to check in on Emilirose. I genuinely want to know.
Yeah.
What's
Which happens
going
in
on.
some circles. In some,
No, I'm not saying it doesn't. It
communities.
does happen elsewhere, but it's
No. The falseness of it
Oh, yes.
gotta
It's
make sure I do the checking in or whatever.
Okay.
Katelyn.
2 things. What is the weirdest conversation you've ever walked up on from an Acorn School mom?
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
Just you were saying you hear random things all the time.
It was a conversation I was a part of, and I'd rather not repeat it.
Oh, nice.
Okay, but what's
You walked up on
Which one you can repeat?
What's a strange thing that you can say that you've heard people talk about? Because I've heard some randomly strange things that you're just even interesting things. You're like, wow, I didn't even know.
Putting ghee on your feet and then wearing wool socks when you sleep. That's
Well,
the
there's
thing.
definitely, yes,
And stuff
a
like
lot
that.
of, I'm trying to think of there's always Marilee talking about her pets that she has, which are actually fermented foods.
Oh my God, nice.
I was looking at you she doesn't have any pets.
I know. I was too
because she has too many fermented foods to
She's
take
like,
care
they
of.
are alive.
Well, she doesn't
Her
have to feed
sourdough
them.
starter.
Yeah.
No, you do have to feed
You
them.
have to cultivate them
Yes.
to keep them alive.
And her apple cider vinegar
I can
exploded.
just picture her saying that. Oh my goodness.
So lots of
So
conversations
funny.
about
there's
stuff like
the
that.
reason I even asked that is you mentioned that there's always people talking about stuff. I frequently just walk around Acorn School and hear little tidbits of conversations that you're like, how did they get there?
Yes. That's what I was saying earlier.
What rabbit hole did they just
It's because
venture
of the
down?
3 hours. You
Okay.
can get someone's whole life
I
story.
love that you said that
in
because
3 hours.
I have shifted from, I originally was teaching. So I was focusing on the children, and the children's conversations are also pretty
They
interesting.
are.
But
They
anyway, so
are.
I went from that to stepping back, and now I can hang out more with the parents.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't know if they just don't pay attention.
They don't know
I'm
you're
just
there.
they don't know I'm there. But I'll be walking by and I'll just
Just
be oh, darn, I wish I was a part of that. So then I slowly start to inch closer.
Yeah.
And then I'm I don't have
What are you
kids
guys
yet.
talking about?
I
kids
do
yet,
that so
but-
often. It's
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
that's just the thing you have to do. If
Yeah.
you hear something that's interesting, you just kind of stand
Well,
close
and
and
then-
then you wait to
Yes.
be able to offer
Well,
something.
not only
important.
wait, but I don't have kids yet. So then I have to be how can I not make this weird? But I want to know. So I have to be tell me more about this for my future self. I just I'll need this later. So just give it to me now.
There's so many things. I just
So
wish we
love
could
it.
describe them, but there's
Yeah.
so many things that I'm
It's so
the
good.
conversations are just amazing. So
No, it's so
I,
true.
I just think it's very rich in that way. There's just so
Wow.
much richness that I love going. I don't feel bored going. I don't feel we're gonna go. We're gonna talk about the same thing we always talk about.
Yeah.
There's always something rich and interesting.
And new experiences.
Yeah.
Like even
and the
today.
kids are always talking about
Yeah,
rich and
it's
interesting
always
things
fun.
also that are really funny.
Oh, yeah.
So lastly, what do you guys see your future like as far as homeschooling goes and things with your family? Where do you guys see yourselves?
Yeah, I know we've talked pretty extensively about not wanting to start any sort of formal education until Emerson is closer to 7, just because reading about Waldorf and other
It's a whole
education
different
methodologies.
podcast.
Yeah, it's a whole
It's
thing.
been
But
recorded already. you can tell.
just
Yeah.
there's a lot.
Listen.
There's a lot of information out there about how delaying like
reading.
formal reading, formal writing, math, that kind of thing can be really beneficial for children.
It's so funny the word you just used, delaying it, because I use it too.
Yeah, but it's like that's just it's
funny
early
to even say
otherwise.
that.
Yeah.
But it's just not even delay. It's just like when the kid
Yeah.
wants to do
Yes,
it,
that's
and
the
they're
next
ready
thing I was
for
gonna
it.
say.
Yeah, they'll.
I was gonna
do
say
it.
with the idea in mind that like if she's like ready for it and doing it sooner, cool, let's
If
do
she's
this.
asking
But just
questions.
the
Everybody's
other day,
been
well,
touched
she's
by
already.
the public school.
I
like-
know, right? Well, just the other day
Sally.
though, she's like, we've not gone out of our way to be like, this is the ABC and these are
Yeah.
the letters and the numbers or whatever. And she just, I don't know how, is coming up. She's
Hey.
like, hey, that's a 5. And I'm like, that is a 5. I have no idea how you learned that. It's like just
She
osmosis.
could
She's
read
learning
A
things.
and
Charlie is that way so much. He's becoming like a little Rain Man too. Like he's like, what is 772? What is 345? Like he just starts like going, and then he's like adding things, and then he's like, he's like saw
Oh,
the
in the
election
car that one
numbers.
time, he did
He-
like 30 plus 30, and he said it.
He's doing all
I
these
was-
numbers. I am
oh.
not teaching him math at all. This kid
Wow.
is like seeing numbers in the world, and he's like processing them. He took 772 pictures on his phone or on his digital camera he bought to class today.
Yeah.
He's like, what is 772? And I was like, that's 772, and he's like, oh, he's like, wait, 277 was what Donald Trump numbers on like last night on the election. I was like,
I love it.
Yeah, that's the numbers reversed. that you
Like funny how they like make these weird connections.
but
Yeah.
but he's learning it in real life,
Yeah.
in real time,
Yeah.
in a completely natural way.
Yeah.
Mm.
Which is
I love
so different than like sit at the workbook and read this thing. And
Yeah.
and I just watch him and he's like constantly just like noticing the numbers and
Mhm.
how they work in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't have to do anything. That's
Totally.
the trust and the responsibility. Like he is responsible for his own self and his own education. And I trust that he's going to learn it.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
And he's never
to
going to
watch.
have somebody go, you're not good at math. And then go, I'm probably not good at math. And then realize that he's never, yeah.
Yeah,
I
he's
was told
just
that. Actually, though, I am
experiencing
kind of.
I was pulled out of an AP.
People have strengths and
I was
weaknesses.
I was pulled out of an AP.
John
like,
can
I-
zoom in on Star's face for that. How many times Emilirose has messed up dates and numbers, and
I was
can't
pulled out of an
trust it.
AP biology, like science class, and they were like, "Should you really be in this class?" And I was like, "Probably not." Like I said, "No, whatever."
Don't even let me try. Honestly, though,
Science is
nobody
my
should be.
most
That's a whole other thing.
favorite thing
I was
to
gonna
like study and read. But I read tons of books, listen to all kinds of podcasts. Like it's like one of the things that I like enjoy the most is just like wondering about the wonder of how the world
But
works.
AP science wouldn't have.
No, it would
tell
have
you
taught me
from
how to take an AP test.
That's my point. I was going to say that earlier. This is a way callback, but like the classes I was taking in high school were all the like AP whatever. So it's like,
We met in AP
let's
biology
put all the
before
pressure
I got
and
pulled
make it
out.
advanced placement and extra fast pass with all
You're
this extra
so
homework.
smart. and
Yeah.
You could do more.
Oh my gosh, so stupid. But anyways, so
So bringing it back to
del-
homeschool.
delaying it, right? Doing it
Yes.
when she is ready and interested. I say delay because in my brain, just like not putting pressure on myself to like be doing anything. Like maybe when she turns 7, if we're not doing anything, it's like, let's try getting interested in some things, maybe presenting her with some options. But
Presenting her with
Yes.
options.
oh, there's a
Strewing?
word
In
for it.
unschooling, they call it strewing.
It's true.
Where it's not where you're totally passive. You are like you are showing information. You are giving things. You are putting things in their life
yeah,
to.
learn and
What
absorb.
did Emily? It's like a
Yes.
feast of.
It's like
It's like
yeah,
Charlotte
feast.
Mason. You're giving
Love
them a
buffet
feast of
or-
information. You're
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not just
strewing
gonna sit back
things.
and be like, okay, I hope you figure it out on your own, kid.
I do
Like-
that with numbers and letters. Like, oh, let's put number magnets on our,
Yes.
thing. Let's do. They're strewing things into
Yeah.
his life. I want him to learn to read and write and do math.
Yeah.
Duh, like that's what I want. But there's
Yeah.
ways of putting it in their environment
Yeah.
and engaging them in their natural environment without forcing them to do it in a certain way. So
I
you
love
can
that.
I
strew
love that.
all kinds of things into her life, and then you get to see what she picks up on.
yeah.
You
what
know,
she's
you're like,
interested
oh,
in.
she really likes that. I'll give more of that.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, because we are at Acorn School all the time and she is not going to the OWLS class, I think she has like major FOMO. She's like, what is that class? Why am I not in it? She's just asking me about it all the time, like literally constantly.
What are they
Mom, can you tell me again why I can't be in that class? I'm like, well, it's for older kids. Well, you're whatever. And I'm telling her, I'm like, you can't. It's like they read. And she's like, I could read. And I was like, well, no, baby, you can't. And she's like, well, you can teach me. Like, let's learn to read. And I was like, that's
Aw.
really cute, actually.
Mhm.
So she
Yeah.
literally told me the other day, she's like, and then after I learn to read, we'll join the OWLS class.
Charlie's the same way.
That's so
He likes the
cute.
OWLS class because he literally picks up the book. He doesn't know how to read. He listens and tries
Well,
to
she
read along.
loves to listen to us read
Yeah.
chapter books. So
He
that
reads
makes,
along and he like plays with the book and he
Cute.
like looks at it. And
that was
he-
the same conversation
really
though. She told me,
interested.
well, if we're going to homeschool, we have to have nature and we have to have walks because school has nature walks. And I was
Oh,
like,
that's so cute.
I love it. That's
That's
her
her
norm.
normal, yeah.
That was my favorite when you said
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
It was
That's
so
the
sweet.
thing that I'm glad we called it Acorn School. Sometimes I go like,
Yeah.
oh, I wish we didn't name it Acorn School because it's in
The
my mind it's
school.
not a school.
Yeah.
But I love that
No, I
we're
love it.
reprogramming
yes,
Mm.
it's a new
to
definition
what
of
school,
school.
a different definition of like that is
Good.
school. that
Especially
is nature
because
walk.
our kids are going to see like Emerson has this weird fascination with school buses, for example. She's like, where's the school bus going? I want to be on a school bus. And I'm like,
Prison.
you
Just
you
kidding.
really don't.
They use the same ones. Just paint them
No,
white.
but she's like asking me, did you ever ride
So
a school
funny.
bus? Like we've had so many conversations about school buses and I don't know how to tell her like there's no AC. It's uncomfortable. It takes you longer to get home. You don't want to do it. But she's just like school buses. I don't know. So my point is with the school thing, if we didn't have a place that we go called school, like with the word school in it, just with her personality, she would be like, I want to go to school, Mom. Why can't I go to school like the other kids?
She goes to school.
She thinks she
Yeah.
goes to school.
I know.
She tells people about her school. And I'm
But
like,
she's learning more than
A lot of
Anybody
people
can-
call it school too in general, like this is their school. And I know that it is, but it's a weird thing in my mind
School
because
of
I am
life.
so not school.
yeah.
Like I am one of those people that doesn't even like definite. Like I'm like,
Well, some
It
people have
can't even
emailed
be
us like,
school.
"Oh, when do you do the math? And when do you do the
Yeah.
the writing and the?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No, that's not. Nope."
but I'm like an
Yeah, no.
unschool person. Like I'm like
Yeah.
school. I don't even want Charlie to know the word school. Like that's
Yeah.
how I am. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? And it's not. I don't shelter him and he knows about school and all the things. But like in my
He's like, what's that building? Mom?"
radical mind is that he shouldn't even know what that is.
Concept of it.
And it's because it would ruin because the hunter-gatherers didn't go to school.
Yeah.
What did they do? They just gathered with their mom and they hunted with their dads and they just lived their life with their families and their community, which is what I want my children to do.
Yeah.
That's my whole point. So I get weird about the word school. This is my tangent about this word school.
No, it's
but
cool.
I
It's
think
like,
it's good.
I think it's like
I think it's good.
redeeming it. And
Mm.
just like the fact that my children are going to see other kids in culture are going to school. Like, I think it's cool for kids who are being homeschooled to have like a thing that they can like own as theirs. And with my girls, it'll be Acorn School.
Mhm.
And I think that's awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where
I
do
do
I
think outdoor learning, like nature schools and things like that, are the next revolution of education, anyways.
Yeah.
Like when we did
And
the Charlotte Mason
businesses,
class
too.
and I saw all the kids reading the books in the tree, I was like, okay, if there is a school, it should be like this.
Yeah.
I think it's
You
going to
know,
be the
it's
same
like
way with
How
like businesses
cool,
and co-working
Star,
spaces
to think
and
about,
stuff,
like
too.
Olivia and I have talked about this. So you know how Katelyn mentioned earlier that she had this magical teacher that she loved and she like learned about. We are going to be the core memories, or we have created an environment for children to
It's true.
have these core memories that they're going to talk about when they're adults.
Yeah.
Like how cool is that?
It's
That
very
makes me
true.
giddy. I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
No, for sure.
It's like
For
so
sure.
magical.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
already happening. My kids always
Oh,
talk about
for
Miss
sure, I see
Olivia
it.
and Emilirose and
Mhm,
like
mhm.
all the time. So
Yeah.
yeah,
For sure.
I love it. Oh, that's so sweet.
Oh, cool.
But yes, at Acorn School, that's
Yeah.
where we'll be.
Thank
Thank you
so
guys so
much.
much
This
for
was
coming
wonderful.
and talking to us and
Thanks for having
being
us.
a part of the team. Also, if you guys don't know, John and Katelyn also work at Acorn School now, technically. I mean, Katelyn does all of our photos. So the beautiful photos you see all over our website and blogs and Instagram is all Katelyn. She also takes photos just as her job. If you
Yeah.
ever want to get
If
your
you ever
photos
want
taken,
them, yeah,
she's
they're
amazing. And then John does marketing, and how many months ago was that?
It was in July.
July, John joined the Acorn School Unicorn team, and
Unicorn team, the
he
official phrase.
became
Yes.
a unicorn in our herd, and he does all of our marketing now. So our emails, our We're going to have Mighty Networks by the time this is out. We'll have that going.
We're so excited.
He's helping with our website, our blogs, our
Podcasts.
podcast.
John does all
He's
the
a
things.
jack of all trades.
really
So
is.
amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for not
Yeah.
only just being a part of the community, but also joining like our teams. I remember when we
Yeah.
were camping and you guys, I was like, I need more things to do with these beautiful pictures. And I was doing all the marketing by myself the whole time we did Acorn School. So like everything
lot.
was like only me. And there was no way I was going to like blog and like do all these other things. I have 3 kids and all this stuff. And I remember sitting camping and you guys were like, yeah, you need like a podcast and a blog and all these things and da 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 da. And I was like, I'm never going to have those things. Like there's no way I can do that. And I just felt like that's real marketing. That's like really good stuff that you guys can do. But like we will never have that. And then it was a few months later, it occurred to us after we were like looking for that, like maybe John could just
Maybe John,
wait a minute.
do it, please. Yeah.
So it was an evolution of realizing that.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that you guys not only come to Acorn School, but are helping us. It's been amazing. So
I'm
Yeah.
personally extremely grateful to be able to serve in this way with something that I believe in so much too. I'm so excited for Emerson to be a part of and Luella soon.
I know.
Isn't that weird?
I think about that. That's gonna be so
I'm gonna
Ella
get
and
all
Goldie
teary-eyed.
are just
And,
like
we need to
the
close out.
cutest people.
It's
too
cute.
much.
So
They
Oh my
really
God.
can't handle it.
All right.
No,
Well,
love it.
thank you guys so much. This was great.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.